there's been a lot of talk about drive shafts, and a lot of people putting out there, oh, it's got to be 2 degrees or 3 degrees, and you're supposed to have the transmission and differential at the same plane, and a lot of terminology gets wrong because I hear people saying constant velocity when it's not constant velocity. I'm going to try and make this fast, okay? Because I know you guys don't like the whiteboard, and it's no fun looking at a drawing, and it's just no fun just looking at something stagnant like this. I don't have a prop for this, but I hope through explanation that you would have a better understanding of what's going on. So when someone says, hey, you need 2-3 degrees on the differential, and then you ask why and they walk away, I'm here to explain that, okay? Why? Because a lot of people ask why, and nobody's really explaining why you need to have each angle cancel each other out. Now, moving forward, without getting into X and Y axis, explaining why introducing a cross into a circle actually speeds up and slows down, let's just move ahead of that. So what happens here is the reason why you need a flat a 0 degree plane here and 0 here is because what happens is that drive shaft angle, it's at the same degree rear to front, okay? What does that do? Well, this U-joint cancels, this U-joint right here cancels the drive shaft, and this U-joint slowing and speeding, it cancels it out, it neutralizes it. Okay, so what do I mean? So when you have something turning, okay, and then you have a cross hook to it, you now have a speeding and slowing of the shaft turning. All right, let me repeat myself. The shaft is speeding up and slowing down. Even though that this is a constant speed, after you introduce a joint, it now speeds up and slows down. So if you were to take a Hall effect sensor and a wheel and hook it up, you would see that this would stay constant, okay, the output right here. But as soon as you cross over from that U-joint, because you're introducing a cross to something that's turning, you are speeding up and slowing down the drive shaft, okay? That creates an imbalance, okay? When you introduce a second joint at the same degree, but at opposite ends, so like this is, you have 20 degrees here, and now you have 20 degrees on top, all right? They cancel each other out because it essentially, it speeds up and slows down here, and when it gets to here, the second joint, it's doing the opposite of speeding up and slowing down, like in this diagram right here. So here's your neutral, all right? This is if everything was at one level, okay? Drive shaft, pinion, transmission, everything's at a neutral plane here, okay? So you have the slowing down and the speeding up of one joint, all right? Here's the one joint. Like if you were to look at this one, all right? This is straight, this is one joint. So you have a slowing down and speeding up of the shaft. That creates your vibration, okay? And I'm not going to get into the velocity of it. That's another video. I'm simply going why you want the same angle or not. Maybe sometimes you want a 0, and that comes another part of the equation here. So when you have a speeding up and slowing down, one U-joint, creating an angle, you have this. This causes your vibration. A second joint at the opposite deflection cancels each other out, and you become a neutral plane. For this right here, okay, let's say you lift the truck, you put big monster tires on it. They say to rotate the pinion up, and I'll get into why this doesn't starve the pinion and how it may starve it if you start messing with the back cover. So at any rate, when you have a lifted vehicle and you turn that pinion angle to match the drive line, what you want is a Cardin joint, all right? This has 2 universal joints. Now, you do not get more angle from a Cardin joint because in the center here, it has to be connected. If it wasn't connected, if it wasn't centered, this thing will be flopping all over the place. So the Cardin joint, what happens is, yes, you're introducing a vibration from the one joint, and this is actually oscillating up slow or speeding up and slowing down, the secondary joint cancels it out. That's how a Cardin joint works. And this is a Cardin. This is not a CV joint, all right? This is not a constant velocity joint. A constant velocity, actually, there really isn't a neutral constant velocity joint, all right? It's just a smaller slowing and speeding of the joint, okay? Because you still have an inner cage that is speeding up and slowing down. Why is it speeding up and slowing down in a lower sense? All right, because you have more contact points around the circle. The more contacts you have around the circle, like if you have 4 here, it's a good speeding up and slowing down. But if you have 6 or 8 here, that speeding up and slowing down gets smaller, okay, because of the distance between the connection is closer together. This is a CV joint, okay? It's actually a Rzeppa joint with an R. That's the actual name for it, and some people call it even a Bosch joint, all right? But this is actually the correct terminology is a Rzeppa joint, and you could call it a constant velocity, but it's really not. So just for ease of this video and not getting into real specific details, we can call it a CV joint, all right? Now, where do you see these CV joints? You see them on front wheel drives, all right? You know, the outside is the turning. This is where it gets, you know, you can turn your steering. This will be your wheel, and this will be your, you know, going into your transmission. That is smoother. If you had universals on the end, when you turn the wheel, you can actually, at high speed, you can actually feel that, and it'll be a vibration, all right? So CV is more smooth, all right? Even though it's still speeding up and slowing down, it's more smooth. You can, it's not readily felt, okay? So this is the outer joint on a CV axle. The inner joint, that's called a plunge joint, okay? Because it moves in and out, and it also allows that up and downward movement while it's spinning. The plunge joint is a different video with the front wheel drive, so moving on. Where did the saying come from? 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 degrees, all right? Where did that come from? Well, that's an old way of thinking, all right? Why is it an old way of thinking? Because, you know, we used to have leaf springs, all right? And what would happen is you get axle twist. So in order to combat that, you would tilt your pinion, you would tilt your pinion down. So when you take off and that axle rotates because of the leaf spring allowing it to twist, that'll actually straighten out the joint to where it'll cancel each other out. It'll be more neutral. Now, that's for racing and taking off. You necessarily don't want to be driving that car home, because what will happen is you'll have a vibration and you won't be able to get rid of it either. Now, the more degree you have set into predicting how much that axle twists in the leaf spring pack, that's how strong your vibration is going to be. So, why would you want 1 to 2 degrees in an axle or in the joint itself? Why would you want that 1 to 2 degrees? All right. So when you have a U-joint cross, the only way that grease gets moved or circulated about is with an angle, 1 to 2 degrees. It makes that joint move and it circulates that oil. If it doesn't move and you have it neutral all the time, what will happen is it'll actually indent into the joint because it is no longer sharing the load over a surface area. It is now locked on that same surface, the same position roller, the same wear surface, and you're taking off, reverse, you're speeding up, you're slowing down, and it's not moving, okay? So that's where you get the indentations. I hope I explained that enough. I don't want to make this video too long, and I already think it's already way too long. So in a nutshell, introduce one joint, you're going to be speeding up and slowing down. Introduce a second, it counteracts the speeding up and slowing down and becomes more neutral. I'm trying not to get too technical, so If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section. I'll be glad to do another video on this or explain more in depth. But for right now, I think the main thing to take from this is, even though this is one speed at a constant speed, this isn't. This speeds up and slows down, and that will make your drive shaft flex more if you don't get rid of it. All right, so you'll need a bigger tube, and that's going on into another video. So leave your comments. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to explain deeper. That's what I got for you. I hope this helps.